And we are live at the Venture to Victory podcast. I'm your host, Tim Tonella, CEO of MatchStar Venture Search. And on this pod, we look specifically at the entrepreneurial journey from funding to exit. And today I'm so excited because we have Josh Cohen, who is the founder of City Light Capital in New York. And he's going to bring a perspective on funding, but a different perspective, something I think is very important. It's called impact investing, but it's something different than you'd find from the traditional VC. And for a lot of you founders that are out there, startup guys that are looking for who should I take money from when I feel like I'm trying on a mission to make a big social impact, there are actual venture funds out there where the founders set up the funds for that sole purpose. And if you can get in alignment with a firm like Josh's, I think together that makes a great partnership and a chance to solve some of humanity's pressing issues today. So Josh, welcome.
Appreciate it. With an intro like that, I should.
Thank you. This concept, when the company was set up, that you can have large financial returns, you can build a really strong business that rewards investors and founders, but you can also do it in a way where you can make a positive social impact. And I think looking at, we talked about pre-pod, looking at some of the younger generations, people that are in their 20s and the 30s, they are a different breed of people. And I say that in the most positive light. They do care about our world. They care about equity. They care about fairness. They really care about sustainability. And they're willing to trying to solve some of those problems and make a difference. In case of Josh in particular, overall, I would say that the companies and founders who want to make the world smarter, safer, fairer, more sustainable, this is a general thesis that I hear all the time that I find very hard to contradict. Funny thing, Josh, starting off, if I read your bio on your website and your bio on your LinkedIn profile, it starts off by saying, this is how Josh wants to be remembered, which is funny because I look at you and I think the last thing you're looking at is how you want to be remembered, right? Because you seem so young and you've done so much. You've got so much more to do. And it almost sounds like somebody who's older looking back. And I remember, when I first met my wife, she had asked me a similar question, like, how do you want to be remembered one day? Even though I felt like you, I was pretty young. And I told her, and she says, well, you need to write your epitaph backwards from the age you plan on dying back every 10 years. And the important part of that is that if you want to be remembered for something, you just can't show up and hope it happens, right? These things that you're trying to accomplish can often take 20, 30 years to do. And so thinking about the future and then starting to put those initiatives in place today is the only real way that you can land there by design. And so I thought it was a really interesting way to start off. You don't see that often with VCs, how they want to be remembered. It's usually about the company and the portfolio. And I think that kind of social awareness, inward thinking is a big part of why I really wanted you on the pod and some of the things that you're going to share today. So I think that's really cool. A couple of things about Josh personally. Man, you've covered the whole gambit. I mean, you started as an investment banker. You've been an actual tech executive, an operator. You led investments for a family office. And of course, you're one of the founders of City Light Capital. City Light Capital focuses on earlier stage companies, so starting with Series A firms, but they also have 2 seed firms that we'll talk about, 5 funds in total. And the overall goal of the seed fund was to enable startup founders to be part of a large community where people share like-minded views and hopefully it can connect to a wider web. And I bring this up because I, as an executive recruiter, normally come in when companies have done a Series A, but I get so many founders that are looking to do seed investments. And they have these niche industries that could be great, but not a lot of investors are interested. So for example, a real common one we talked about earlier is technology platforms for mental health. That's a niche industry, but it is so important. I think everybody in our life has been touched multiple times with people, family, friends, people in our community, employees that are going through mental health issues. And so it's so cool that you're trying to get people started out very early on the seed side in some of these niches. And hopefully if they're successful there, you can be part of leading that Series A. The core thesis here is how we can use money, actual capital, to invest in companies that are going to make a big difference in this world. So Josh, it's really exciting. I think you're going to really inspire a lot of people. And as we said earlier, if there's just one founder that is going to change the world one day, and right now they're at that initial inflection point, I have an idea, I have passion, I care. I don't know how I'm going to get started with an investor. This is the place to be. And Josh is going to lay it out on the line today. So Josh, thanks again. All right. So you started out as an investment banker, doing deals, doing transactions. You work for companies, you've led investments. What part of your career or your life did this? There had to be a shift at some point. Maybe it was having your kids. I don't really know, where you turned from inward to outward and started thinking about, if I'm going to do this, whatever I do, whether it's an investor or an operator, I might as well, for the effort, try to make an impact on these important social issues. When did that spark happen?
Yeah, for me, the start of City Light Capital was really a reaction. 9/11 made me feel a lot of things, one of which was hypocritical. And so I was on this path where I was going to make a bunch of money in tech and in finance, and I was going to turn 75 or 80 years old and become a philanthropist and donate money to live out my values. But it was just a reminder life can be short and there's no guarantee that I get there. And so I knew who I wanted to be. I should just kind of get on with it already. And so I started to invest in entrepreneurs working on tech solutions to prevent the next 9/11, and started to look at education and climate related businesses. My mom's a teacher, had been focused on climate for most of my life, and then added healthcare about 8.
Did you have your children? We talked about your three boys. Did you have your children before that happened, or is it something that kind of went in conjunction with it?
26 years old. I didn't know any better, right? Like had I known how hard it was going to be and all of the gaps in my experience set and my skill set, I probably wouldn't have started it. But you don't know what you don't know. And I was motivated by passion and I had a high degree of confidence. And so I just set out to find those types of companies. And lo and behold, there are way more than.
That's incredible. I know some people when they're young accomplish so many different things because they don't know that they can't do something. And that's, I think, the brilliance of investing in nurturing and mentoring people who are young to see that flower flourish like that. So it's really cool that that hit you when you were young and that you eventually landed in a spot where you could make a difference by investing in multiple companies as opposed to just one, which is the VC model, but with a nice socially impact touch to it as well. For the people watching this video, I would love to hear about one investment you made that did make a big impact that maybe you're the most proud of. It doesn't have to be the largest investment, but something that would kind of synthesize the reason why you make these type of investments in these types of companies.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the one I'm most proud of, but there was a company investment we made early on that kind of gave me the confidence to persist. It was kind of an indicator that I was on a path that was worth continuing on. We were one of the first outside institutional investors in a company called ShotSpotter, which is in your neck of the woods in the Bay Area. And they're in the business of acoustic-based gunshot detection. So what they do is they put a series of network microphones in inner cities throughout the world that listen for the muzzle blast of a gun. The sensors hear that, triangulate, and we can dispatch an officer to the exact location where a gun is fired, roughly 100% of the time. Now, why that matters is less than 20% of gunshots are called in. So we found people still in the act of shooting. We found people who otherwise would have bled to death and you could take to the hospital. In areas where this technology has been deployed for over a year, gunshot-related crime is on average 30%.
That's incredible. Is that been deployed across multiple cities now?
I think we're in 80 plus cities today.
Wow.
My partner is on the board for a long time, no longer on the board. So, but it's a publicly traded company and limited in terms of what I can comment. But it's been phenomenal. We were brought in by one of the seed investors who was one of my investors at the operating business that you referenced. And early on, I brought in a bunch of friends and friends of friends to invest through me into this business. And one of them had me out to his country club in New Jersey, and we walked by 6 tables of his peers. And he was a C-level exec for one of the largest financial services firms in the world at that time. And every single one of them was like, hey, so-and-so, love what you're doing at Newark, because Newark, New Jersey just announced they're putting the ShotSpotter system. Or love what you're doing with that ShotSpotter company. It was interesting to me that this was a fraction of 1% of this gentleman's net worth, but this is what he wanted to talk about. Amongst his peers, it was not just about the financial returns, it was about his legacy and his brand and how he wanted to be known. And I thought that there was something magical embedded in that relationship between his capital and this company. And if I could find those types of opportunities for these types of people, I could be doing this.
Yeah, it sounds like that's one of those businesses where you can actually have real success stories where you can go back and talk to people that survived because of the technology. And you can see how the impact that you made as an investor in, promulgating that company actually saved a human being's life. I mean, that's, how often do most people, unless you're in the military or a medical field or something like that, see the actions you take literally saving a person's life?
It's very fortunate.
Yeah. Let's hear a little bit more about your concept of impact investing, because you hear about mission-driven investing and things like that. But impact investing, I don't know if you coined the term, but I know
I
you
do not.
came up with it before it happened. What's your vision of that? And why do you think it's important that VCs, if they're going to invest, at least consider that as a potential strategy?
Yeah, I'm not here to convert other VCs. I'm here to tell you kind of how I've chosen to spend my limited time and my limited capital on the planet. For me, there are two things that I know to be true. One is I'm really close with my dad, and he has this moment that's forever like etched in his brain. It's the moment that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, and he was listening to on the radio. He could tell you what direction the wind was blowing and the temperature and like all these details that happens when you have a life changing. And for me, it was the moment the second plane hit the World Trade Center. And it was this choice, right? Like this could be about fear and destruction, hopelessness, or you can figure out how to turn this into a sense of motivation and prevent you from feeling this way again. And fortunately, I chose the latter and set out to combine my training as an investor and a tech entrepreneur in ways that would allow me to maximize the time that I spent in whatever, how many years I had.
So when you went out and you were raising funds and you're looking for limited partners, are most limited partners, do they share the same vision? Is that the main reason they're investing with you? Because they too want to make a social impact and they feel like, hey, the money that they've earned could be invested in a positive way? Or is that what's driving a lot of your LPs as well?
Mostly we manage money for family offices, and these are typically families who have pre-existing philanthropic goals, and they've decided that the way we view the world and how we want to deploy capital is consistent with their pre-existing. And it might be some of them, it may be more than one, it may be all, but it's a good way to complement their pre-existing philanthropic goals. And so if they're investing, if they want to move the needle in mental health through their philanthropy, and I can find for-profit companies that increase the likelihood they move the needle, and that's gives them more tools in their tool belt to affect change.
Yeah, I think that's great because the rich are so vilified sometimes. And if people really peeled away the onion and saw what they cared about and how they actually take their wealth and share it across a diverse portfolio, not just a portfolio of investments, but how they just spend that money to change the world in a positive way. I think a lot of people would have a different view on that. And I think this is just one aspect of being a limited partner in the fund that's trying to share those same values and make a difference with their family fortunes. So I think that's really amazing. We talked a little bit earlier. Do you see this as a trend or more of a movement these days? You said earlier, well, I'm not trying to convince anyone, but when you shine a bright light, people see. And I think whether you're an investor or you're anybody, no matter who you are in your life, as you get older, I think there is that point where you sometimes sit back and say, you know, as time seems to wane down, did I make an impact? Did I do the best that I could do? And I think stories like this inspire people. So what do you see? Do you see more people looking to invest in these types of opportunities?
Yeah, so I co-founded a nonprofit organization a few years ago called Impact Capital Managers. I think we started
Okay.
with more between 10 and 15 managers that were pursuing social impact and market rates of return. And over the last few years, we've grown to north of 120 members.
Wow.
And so there are a lot more people doing this. There are a lot more entrepreneurs. I wish there were more entrepreneurs. And ideally, the most talented entrepreneurs focus on solving the most important problems. And if that is a byproduct of having these types of conversations, then that's massively.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you there are a lot of them. Like I said, I get called so often with companies that, even though I'm a recruiter, people, that's the number one thing they call me for, believe it or not. I'm trying to raise money to start a business. And of course, as soon as I raise enough money, I'm going to use MatchStar Venture Search and you guys, Tim and Carolyn. However, our goals, and we keep a list of people that come in with a certain passion of maybe investors that we can connect them with. So that is a really important thing. For young entrepreneurs or founders or people looking to do that next round, what is the typical criteria that you look for as a firm, given this thesis of impact investing? So if somebody says, wow, I should reach out to Josh, what are the things of interest that you're going to look into to inspire, that would inspire you to potentially want to be one of those initial investors?
Yeah, so there's a few things. One is we have very few first-time CEOs in our portfolio. Even in scenarios where the first-time CEO, there's typically an experienced management team around that person, so they could shorten sales cycles and reduce the time in which they're in cash. We're focused on companies with product-based impact with an aligned business model. And so there's lots of different ways to affect change in the world. We want to do it when there's no economic trade-off embedded in the company. So the more products they sell, the more services they provide, the more lives they enrich in a tangible way. Beyond that, we're US focused. We optimize for finding companies in digital health, climate, and education. And we're happy to talk to anyone. We'll, on the Series A side, we typically look for about $1 million in revenue. We've averaged about doing one of those deals per quarter over the last 20 years. And on the seed side is a really high throughput model. Over the next 4 years, we'll do between 150 and 200.
Wow. So for seed investing, let's say, same thing. You're looking for experienced CEOs, because obviously for seed investing, a lot of this, they may not have significant traction yet. They have an idea, they have a platform that's built out, they have a social mission. That works for you as well. So it doesn't have to be you're actively in market, but you do want to see a seasoned team or a team they pull together and someone that's just not a first-time founder. Looking back, because you're a little bit different, I see a lot of people that were always VCs. I see people that were operators in a company and then became VCs. I see operators that go into the family market, but I don't usually see someone that over a 20-year period has done all the things that you've done from banking all the way through. So with that perspective, is there any particular advice you give entrepreneurs who are looking to make an impact, but they seem to be running into challenges when they're talking with investors about the nature of their business? Any advice that you would give to them, having been on the ground floor for so long?
Yeah, when we first started to do this, we would hear from entrepreneurs all the time that we wanted to talk about our social impact in a pitch session, but we were advised that we should pull out that slide or those two slides because people wouldn't take us seriously when making money. I think that our product-based focus with an aligned business model removes that tension. And we typically co-invest with non-impact oriented investors. Over the last years, we've invested with over 875 venture funds, the overwhelming majority of which like the same companies because they like the team, they think it's a massive market and this is a compelling way that's scalable and defensible in solving a big problem. And we like the company for the same reasons, plus some additional things. We care about the intent and the measurability and the accountability of the entrepreneur in solving those problems. We want to ask some of those hard questions. We want to make sure that we're using our technologies and our companies to serve low-income and disadvantaged populations in ways that don't widen the gap.
So when you're the lead and you sit on the board personally, and you have a founder or the CEO of the team, what can they expect out of you? What's that relationship like? Do they come to you when they have pressing issues, like The Godfather? Mr. Corleone likes to hear bad news immediately. Do they come to you for mentorship and inspiration? What's the process and the relationship generally like between you or your firm, not just you, but whoever sits on the board of these companies representing City Light Capital and the entrepreneurs?
It varies. I think we've been doing this long enough to know that if we showed up with our playbook and tried to apply our playbook to an entrepreneur's vision, it wouldn't particularly well. And so I think we start from a position of listening and trying to figure out what the entrepreneur and that team needs to be successful. And we like to be moldable to meet those needs. It often involves helping them measure their impact and tell a more impactful story. And that strengthens relationships with current and future employees and with potential partners and with customers in ways that we think increases equity value. But that isn't what we're needed for at all.
If someone I didn't know that you've invested with so many companies that are just co-investing alongside you because it's a good business as well. Hopefully you're guiding them as well into these areas that make a positive contribution. So if somebody's looking for a partner or an investor and they want to reach out to you guys, what is the best way to do that? Do you have an approach? Like, should someone start off by reaching out and saying, hey, Josh, I'm on a mission to change the world. I think this thesis crosses, the various types of companies you invest in. Do you start off that way with the social impact side, or what's the best way for someone to even reach out to you or your team to get on your radar screen and start talking about a potential partnership together?
Yeah, probably the four most popular channels is through existing entrepreneurs, for which there are lots. So if you know somebody we've already invested in, we take those recommendations very seriously. Okay. The other is through VC funds. We get those types of referrals all the time. I do read every single one of my emails. I don't respond to them all because I certainly don't want to waste people's time if it's not a potential fit. And then finally, we'll just reach out through our website or conferences, things like that. Like I spoke at a mental health panel last week. I had a whole bunch of folks reach out to me afterwards. My email is just josh@citylightvc. Like, our goal is to be approachable. We also use a tremendous amount of tech in our operations, especially on the seed side. And so we're not just waiting for people to show up at our doorstep. We're proactively reaching out to companies where we think there's a good profile, trying to get warm introductions through our own networks.
Well, it sounds like if you can be part of that seed network, there's a lot of, we'll call it smart money, but opportunities to really connect with other people that share the same type of values and ideals. And I think that's where you build that Rolodex and that connected network, like you said, with fellow entrepreneurs. So great opportunity. So Josh, I wanted to thank you again for joining us on the podcast today. Hopefully we're going to touch a bunch of people who are looking to find the right partner, and it'll make a difference as well. So I really appreciate you stepping on board today. Thanks. And that's a wrap. The Venture to Victory podcast is provided by MatchStar Venture Search. If you're interested in any of our open executive roles or need help sourcing world-class talent for your company, check out our website at matchstar.com.